In InDesign, everything that you place into documents will be contained within frames. Whether it's text or images, we also refer to frames as containers. What you have inside the frame is also referred as content. It is very important to remember these terms and to understand the concept of relation between two of them. When you select an image with the black arrow, the selection tool, you'll get the control points showing up around the edges like so. And there will always highlight that this will always highlight the boundaries of your frame or container. Now, what's different in InDesign compared to Photoshop and Illustrator is that when you start moving these control points around, you're not actually resizing the image, but you're cropping it like this. So when you start dragging any of these control point, you will notice straight away that I am hiding the details of the original image like this. This original image is in the background showing with a little less opacity. So control points are for cropping, and good thing is you can always reset them by just double clicking on one of the corner points that will show again. Let's go here, double click here, and it will show the everything from the original image. If I want, I can drag these control points further as well, which might be useful in some cases like this. But once again, if I double click, these control points will snap back to the original image, and it will realign itself around the content, which is the image in this case. Now let me zoom in a little bit closer in this image. Control plus. That's too much. Control plus. Now it immediately centers to it and also to the screen. If I crop this image again, let's say I crop it from below. Just click and drag below. Okay. Then while it's being cropped, it will be able to now move the image within the container. By double clicking on it and start dragging around it. Just double click on this and I can start dragging around this like so. So I can place it up or down depending on my requirement. So what you see now happens is that container stays in the place and the content is moving. So it's similar to before, but now we are editing the content and not the container. And the way the InDesign is telling us that this is happening showing by the hand tool. The hand tool is here instead of black arrow, so the cursor is changing, but also the color of the bounding box is to changes to brown or like an orange instead of showing current layer color, which is normally by default blue. So if I double click again on the image, I can switch back again to the editing mode, editing the container mode, so I can move around the image together with the container or continue cropping it as before. And you will not lose the content when you are doing cropping with the actual container, so the details that you are hiding will never disappear. Now if I change my crop to something like this, then I can say quickly realign the content. It changes the aspect ratio. By clicking on the image and choosing this one of these fitting options. Let's just say one of my let's just set this like this. Okay. Now I've changed the aspect ratio. I can fit the image with respect to this aspect ratio by right clicking on the image and by choosing one of the fitting options. Fitting options here, and one of my favorite is fill frame proportionally, so which will make sure that the image doesn't get distorted. Click here and it will quickly be resized to show as much as possible with this new bounding box or container. So coming back to the previous page, to make sure you understand, now, whenever you work with images, you will be able to switch between editing the container or the content by using the double click technique. So that's how you enter the editing the content and then exit back into editing the container, which make sure you know which mode you are currently editing, and that's how you're going to affect your images. One mistake that a lot of InDesign users run into beginning is that they accidentally double click on the image when they're and then they start dragging control points. Now what happens, something you want to avoid is distorting the image. So just go to this image and double click here, and they start to distort the image, and like so. This is a distortion of image. So when you're editing the content, the control points will be used for scaling and stretching the image, these control points. So that's something I'm going to undo, and I would recommend not to use that or do that at all, because scaling is much better technique, which I'm going to show you in a second. Just remember, when you see these brown outlines, you wouldn't necessarily want to work with the control points, these brown outlines, and you want to drag the image around within the bounding box. There is an even better way of controlling the content, and I'm going to show you that on here on this page, a feature called content grabber tool. Let's just go here, select this. In case you don't see the content grabber tool, just go to the view menu, extras, and content grabber. You don't have the content grabber tool right now, you can just click on this object, click here, and there you can move around the image. When you go at the center, you can see the hand tool. That's a content grabber tool. So that way you can go to the center and you see this hand. You will be able to move this image up or down or sideways, any way you want it. So this actually saves you time. You don't even have to double click once and then double click again. You can just start dragging the content immediately without switching between the modes. So whenever you see this hand, remember that image will stay in place, so the frame itself doesn't move, just the content inside it. If you ever feel that it's in the way, you can go to the view menu and go to extras and hide content grabber tool. So I won't be able to see that anymore. When I go to the center, you don't see that hand anymore. If you want to see that again, go to extras and show content grabber. Here, if I go to center, I see that right away. Now another very basic thing is that you need to learn about working with the images is rotation. It can be done in many different ways. One of the way is just simply selecting the image, now going close to the corner point and clicking and dragging it. It will allow to rotate. If you hold down the shift key, you can do the rotation with 45-degree increments. So that can be useful as well. And if you want, you can also do the rotation much faster by using this 90-degree clockwise or 90-degree anti-clockwise options that is given here. 90-degree clockwise, 90-degree counterclockwise. You can just move it around like so. So with this option, I can also do the rotation. And in this case, rotation will be based on whichever reference point I select here on the left on the option bar. Here it is the reference point center. Let's just take a center here. Now if I take the rotate this, it will take the reference point as center. Previously it was selected at a corner, so it moved with this corner as a reference. So let's go back. So I prefer to keep the center one highlighted because that's preferable. You can also use the rotation rule, tool that is called the rotate tool, that is here. The shortcut is R. Here is the rotate tool. Again, it can be used with respect to this center point. Currently I have a center point here, and if I click and drag, I'll be able to rotate this image like so. Also, if I hold shift, it will rotate in the increments of 45, just like the previous one. Also, I have option here from the that is reflecting images. So you have flip horizontal option and flip vertical option here as well. Notice that when I do this letter, it's changing here. By default, it should be a P sign, but once you start flipping and rotating images, the P sign will follow the changes, and you will be able to tell if this image has been flipped or rotated with reference with the P. So it's a very useful indicator up here. If you have rotated an images and you want to set it back to its original orientation, you have to find the angle up here. Let's just say here, that's the angle up here. You can decrease it back to 0, just 0, and it goes back to its original position. And you have basic transformation in scaling images or frames in general, that is done by using Control Shift and dragging from one corner points of an image, and that task is here to make sure that we get the same size for the both images, that is here at the bottom. So we need to align at the right. This here, hold Shift and Alt. Control Shift, and there we can scale it down like so. We also need to align this over one on the right. Just take the move tool, align this right, Control Shift, scale it down exactly with the one on the right. There are other ways of scaling images as well, which I explained here in the workbook, but I prefer, if you learn this method, this is the fastest and most convenient way, to be honest, the safest way of scaling images, because others might again distort the images and mess around with the proportions on them. Let me show you a very useful thing. If you accidentally forget to hold Shift key and hold only Control key, you accidentally distort the image. Let's say just hold the Shift key. I will hold here, and yeah, I hold the Control and chain. I have distorted the images. Okay. When you have an image selected, to check whether it's distorted or not, you can go to the links panel, and in links panel you have this option called effective PPI. We'll come back to this and we'll explain what that means, but as long as you see there are two numbers here, this is 1633 by 2626, means the image is distorted. And when you see a single number here, let's just select this, and you'll see a single number here. Effective PPI is 3907. It means that the image is not distorted. Now, when I go to this image, when I intentionally distort it, we need to see these separate two numbers, and there is an X in the middle. So this image has different resolution for its width and for its height. Indicates that image has been distorted. So to fix that, we have an easy option. Just right click on this, and you have the option of fitting, fill frame proportionally. Just single click and it will come back to its original position. And notice that we have one single number in the PPI. Now, if you want to show the full image again, all I have to do is double click on the corner, and one of this and will show the original image. So we managed to remove the distortion and see everything, and then using the proper way of resizing using Control Shift. Let's click it here, Control Shift, and there we have it. Okay. So these are the basic and most important features you need to know about working with the images, frames, and now let's take a look at how to place images in your InDesign documents. There are several ways of placing an image into InDesign. One of the methods we already discussed was using place, but now I'm going to show how to do it directly within InDesign. You can go to File menu, or you can choose Place, or you can do Control D shortcut and then you all you need to do is find the images that you wish, and here you can place this like so. Now once I do that, I click here, I get the preview of the image within my cursor. We also call this a place gun in InDesign, and we can decide to simply just click, and that way the image will be placed with the current resolution. Or if I go one step back, I'll undo this placement. Now good thing about this, it loads it back to my cursor like this, and I can decide where I want to place it. So from here I will be clicking and dragging and defining the exact size like this. And we know that from previous we can learn how to scale this image later on, because so it's not a big problem if it ends up being too small or too big. We just hold down Control Shift and we can scale it down or up depending on my requirement. And once we have the image, we can do is that we learned cropping. We can just crop this out or maybe rotate it and so on. We have all the control with respect to this image. And then we can use the same feature again, File, Place, and now I'm going to choose a different file. I'll just go ahead and delete this. Go File, Place, I'll choose a different file here. Wait a minute, I'll just have this one here placed here, and then I'm going to go Place, and let's just say this one, and give Open, and the image here gets replaced with the new image. So be careful if you want to place an image in a new image. It makes you firstly outside or deselect everything. So just showing it to have selection, Control Shift A, and it will deselect everything, and that will allow you to place something independently from the previous image. There's a tool in InDesign called the Frame tool or Rectangle Frame tool. And by the way, whenever you see a little arrow next to a tool, it means it has additional options here. You can right click or you can long press here and you'll see the other tools. You'll find the Ellipse Frame tool and Polygon Frame tool as well. If I select the Rectangle Frame tool, with this I can draw a rectangle, or holding the Shift key I can make sure that it becomes a square. Let's just make a square, click and drag, hold Shift, and that's a square. If you release the square, it becomes a rectangle, but I need a square for now, so I'm going to go use the square. Alright, so there's nothing inside this file currently. Let's take this again, click and drag, release. Okay, so currently there is nothing inside it yet. I can go to File, Place, or use the shortcut Control D. File, Place, and choose this image. Now this image gets opened inside this square. When you see you use an empty rectangle and fill it up with an image, it's not going to be fitted in that frame. So what you can do is you can either right click here, use the fitting option, fill frame proportionally, or you can just click on the icon up here in the options bar and select here. Okay, here you have icon here, fill frame proportionally, fill content proportionally, or you have these auto fit option here. You can use as well. So if I click on this, it will make sure that we see as much as possible from this image within this empty frame. Now the rectangle frame tool I like to use whenever I want to create a frame with a specific size. So instead of just clicking and dragging with it, I can click anywhere on the artboard or on a page. Let's just type in, say, 25 by 25. I'll just double click here, and I want 25 by 25 millimeters. And when I click OK, and that frame is exactly 25 by 25 size. Of course, sizes can be adjusted later as well from the options bar with the respect to the W and H values here given here. So, and we will be able to fill in with this another image. But if we choose already in advanced fill proportional option, then go to file, just choose select this and auto fit here. Now I'm going to bring in an image here, place. Let's just say this one. It is going to fit in here properly from advanced. So let's go to the next page here. Now there's a little exercise you can practice using this tool. Let me just move on to the next page and show you something else. This is the frame fitting we already talked about, and there's another tool called gap tool. So if I select 3 images, I can highlight them all together. Let's just place and take 3 images out of this. Shift, hold shift or control, maybe this one. Okay, now open. Let's just say here it's 1, 2, and 3. Let's go back, undo this, and hold. I'll just give right arrow keys and it'll give me 3 frames here and release. And there I have very tall vertical frames with images inside them. Now if you were to select one of these frames and start dragging the edges around, I would simply just crop them. I could just crop them from the top or sides or from the bottom. What you can also do in InDesign, you have this image selected and then click on this auto fit option here. Auto fit or fill frame proportionally. I'll just select both of these and fill frame proportionally. And what we'll do is it adjust the frame and content inside will automatically just adjust itself. So it's going to follow the changes in the frame and look at that. If you just drag it from the top edge instead of cropping the images, now they are resizing and trying to fit themselves to the new frame aspect ratio. So that's a very useful feature and I use it very often, but remember to turn it off when you want to crop your images. If you crop it, now it will click on, and now if you crop it, it will adjust as per the auto fit option. So in case you want to crop them, then you know when to check it on and check it off. Now when you set up images like this and having auto fit and fill frame proportionally options enabled, you can also try another amazing tool, that is a gap tool, having this one selected. And you can adjust the spaces between the images instead of adjusting the image itself. Let's just select all these. If we have the gap tool here. So here I am clicking between these 2 images. Notice I can increase the size of one of them and reduce one other simply just by adjusting the space between them, and I can even adjust the edges like here to include more space for these images or decrease the space for the images. Say I can do it from the sides as well, and from the top or the side or bottom, anywhere that I wish. So in other words, the gap tool is like working with the space around the frames, which we usually call in graphic design the negative space. So this is to scale and adjust the negative space, and I like to use it mainly when I have images set up with the auto fit option and the fill frame proportionally, because that way it becomes more intuitive. There's really another way to show you how. Next page has a funny name, Gridify. What this does is you can actually place multiple images at the same time into your InDesign documents. Doing the same thing as we've done before. I'm going to File and open multiple images here. Open file, place. Let's just say I'll choose multiple images from 1 to 9. Hold Shift and all of them is selected. Click Open. You find the images that we want to say. I want to place these first 9 images. If I use the Shift key, then selected them. Now, even before placing the images, I can see a preview of them within my cursor. So if I use a left and right arrow keys, I can toggle between them and decide which one I would like to start with. So if I now click and drag, I can place the first one and then left with the rest of them, I can place them right next to each other. Now if I give undo, it will be loaded back into my cursor. If I were to press escape, I could remove images from the place gun. So that's, if you decide to choose that, you can do that as well. But even better, that if you decide to place all these images together into a grid, you can use this technique by clicking and dragging. You define your first frame, and then without letting the mouse go, you use your arrow keys. You split and divide between frames into columns and rows. Now I'll just apply that here. Click and drag. If I'm using up arrow key, it is giving me 2 images. Up 1 more. 3. I'll give a right arrow key, and that is going to give me more columns here. So I'm using my left side up arrow keys and right arrow keys to subtract and add rows. You can increase the amount of rows and columns or decrease the amount of rows and columns using your left and right arrow keys. Now, because I have selected 9 images, I can create 3 by 3 grid, and if you let go, it'll populate the images into this smaller blocks. It saves a lot of time. Instead of individually placing them, I have them all placed at once. But I would also make sure that these images are set to fill frame proportionally, to make sure that they fill in the frame nicely. And I can hover over here using the content grabber tool. Let's just go here. Now I can just go in here and go in content grabber and move this around like so. And then we can also turn on the auto fit option here. Just select them, auto fit option. All right. So now if I do the content grabber, let's give undo. Okay. We can also turn. We can now use the gap tool and play around with the gaps as well. So I'll just select all of these. Use gap tool. Now it's even more fun when you have multiple images. You can do more things with gap tool, not just moving and shifting spaces around. You can also hold down shift and you can break the gaps in between 2 images. And you can have maybe a little more visible of one image and have this asymmetrical alignment option here. Reduce the distance between images, so I can minimize the gap between images. So that's also a quite handy technique when you are using the gap tool. Make sure you practice while placing the images here. either individually or together into a group, and go through these exercises in Word, right? So that's one way to play around with the images in the InDesign. Now we're going to take a look at how InDesign is handling images when you're placing them into your documents. So the key is your images will never be embedded. By default, they will be linked, and InDesign will keep the track of original file in your computer. So you just have to make sure that you don't end up renaming or deleting or even moving those images, because then they will turn into a missing link. After that, InDesign will still be able to show you a rough preview, so lower resolution preview of what used to be there in that frame. But it will prompt you to try and fix it before you actually export the work as PDF or you print it, because you don't want to end up having bad quality images showing up in your work. So let me demonstrate this to you. We have an image here, and in the normal view we don't see anything here. The problem with it, we can see a little chain icon when I press W. Here we see a little chain icon. It means this photograph is linked, and when you hover over it, it can actually display the file name as well. Now if I alt click on the link here, it will quickly get into the links panel, and I can see this image is now on the page number 15. And within the link info, I can find more information about this file as well. I can also right click on the name of the file and choose to reveal in Explorer or reveal in Bridge. And clicking on this will show me the file that is from here. Now let's just say I put an X after this file, X, and when I come back to InDesign, I'll just close this out. And now when I come back to InDesign, it will show immediately we have problems. So here it's going to give me this question mark icons. Not only this file is missing link, but all the photocopy and instances of the same file are showing an error here as well. Now when I zoom closer, I will be able to tell the quality of this image has been degraded quite a bit. And it would show more in print, because this is what we can see right now is a low resolution version of the image, and it's just a preview of it. So if you want to fix this problem, you can double click on the question mark here, either on the image or in the links panel, which will take us to a folder. Let's double click here. It'll take us to a folder, load links here. I know the name, so it was photo. Just give open, and the missing link is gone, and you can see that the image resolution has been amped up a bit. Now if I want all these instances to be updated as well, then I can do the same thing by double clicking on this question mark here, and let's just say that's the image that we need, 022x. Okay, open, and there all the instances of problems are solved. There are no missing links anymore. So another very important aspect of working with InDesign is that if you want to take your work from one computer to another, or you're working with someone and they need to have access to your works files maybe in another country, the best way is sending the work or transferring it from one place to another. It's not just simply copying over the InDesign file, but by creating a package, because the package will include all the linked files and fonts as well. But we will come to the creating packages later on. For now, remember this, that links are the image places. Links are the images placed in the images that are placed in InDesign is referring to as long as you are not deleting or renaming or moving those source files, and there won't be any issues. Sometimes you might want to avoid having missing links completely, and embedded images. If you right click here, and you can embed all instances of photo 22x JPG, then the problem is solved. Now, if it's a single image, I will say embed link, and when you do that, you will get a little indicator here. Means that this is an embedded image now. Means that the file size is increased of your InDesign working file, and now that you're not restricted to keep track of where that file is on the computer. So the original source file is still there somewhere. But now, InDesign does not need the file to be around for the document function without having that missing links. I wouldn't recommend using this feature a lot because embedded is going to slow down your document and will appear more slowly when you save, and generally it will be a little more sluggish compared to when you have everything linked. So the right workflow I would recommend is to keep the most of your images linked, and if you need to transfer your files or archive them, it's probably the best to save them in a package, which I'm going to come back and soon explain it. If you want to know how it works, it's just in this file menu, and here you have this package option. Now there's another very important aspect we need to talk about. That's the resolution of the images, which determines where the quality of your print. So it's very important when it comes to printing your document. Now there's another important aspect, and that is checking the resolution of your images. It is the resolution of an image that will determine how it is going to look in print. So higher the resolution, the better the quality is going to be. And the print standard of 300 ppi stands for pixels per inch. Pixels per inch we normally require for a high quality print. So we can check whether the image will look good in print with my current page size. We all have this to do again. Click here and press W, Alt click W. You go to the links panel. So once it comes up here, we have this instance that I selected very high effective PPI, that is 991, and this is the PPI that you need to look at, not the actual PPI. This is very important. It is the effective PPI. It's what it's going to show the resolution with the current scale or size of the image. Now if I hold down Control Shift and drag down the corner points, notice that the effective PPI has increased. Now if I enlarge the image, the effective PPI will reduce. So let me just crop this image because it's a very high resolution. I'll just make it small, just a little bit small, and crop it out. Just like and like so. I'll just crop this out. Maybe around the leaf here. It looks like a floating leaf. And that seems to be interesting and appealing to me. So you see that effective PPI has dramatically reduced here. Now, so anything below the 3, let's just increase this to like so. Let's just bring it up to 300. Let's just one more little bit here. Yeah, so now we have this as at 300 ppi. Anything bigger than that will start stretching the image too far, and we will start seeing pixelation in the print or visible loss in quality. So you want to avoid that. As long as you have your effective PPI as 300, you're good to go. And it's a good indicator whether your image has been stretched out or not. If you have two numbers here, then it means your image has been stretched out. So let me just hold down the control and I'll start dragging this like so. Now I've done this without holding down the shift key, and you see the two numbers here because now the height and width of the image has two different resolutions. So let me just undo the last step, and let me show you another good way of tracking this PPI for all the images in the document, because you might find it difficult to keep track of all your images. Notice that we have 116 links here when I hover over this value. Here 112 links. So I can see none of them are missing, and it's quite actually, links mean that I have several of them with multiple instances. So all these interesting statistics, but I would like to see them in links panel is a column where I can see a quick overview of all the effective resolution for each of these images. And luckily you can do that similarly to customizing panels. You can even customize what you show within the panels. So let's just go to the links panel menu. Here, choose this panels option. Here I can check the effective PPI under show, and I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and you'll see that it has created a new column here which has the details that we were looking for. So if you scroll up and down, you'll find the resolution effective PPI right there. So by clicking on it, lowest PPI, here I have an option that can organize the PPI based files. Just click here, it'll give me the PPI that is lowest up, and in ascending go up in the ascending order like so. Now if I click that again, it is going to show me the other way around, like low bigger first and precedingly it will go lower. So starting with the highest ones and then descending down from that. So that's a great way of finding low resolution images like these ones here. Should be replaced or scaled down to increase their resolution. Even better than this, you can set up this feature called pre-flight, which will automatically warn you and make it up as an error if you have images under a certain effective PPI or resolution. You can already find two errors here. When you will open up it, I have intentionally left some errors inside it, which we will be fixing up in the upcoming chapters. Now if I just double click here, it will open up the pre-flight panel. We can find define pre-flight profiles here, and here I have this plus sign. Click on this. Now let's just say PPI, and I'll just go ahead and give OK. Here I'll just go ahead and here just go ahead, define profile. Here I'll just go ahead inside the images and documents. Let's just check on links here. Within here I have this image resolution here. I can maximum resolution here I want to give is 300. Grayscale I can also define that as well. Now I can just go ahead and give OK. Now you can see it has given me image resolution errors and all the other errors as well. So currently the image resolution errors are at 100. Now that's how this works, because these images are not meeting the criteria of 300 PPI. I have also changed some of the things as well. So let's just go ahead and I'll shut off this and shut off all of these extra check marks here. Let's just go ahead and give OK. Okay, so these are particularly about the image resolutions now, and these are all these images that have low resolution and that needs working on. The preflight will help and guide me through the document and find all the problematic low resolution images aside from the other default options that preflight would check for me, which we will be talking in the next chapters. So check the resolution of the images that you place in the InDesign is the responsibility of a designer, and it's very important to either set up the preflight panel and use a profile which is automatically checking for this, or use a links panel with a column that showed how to add, which will keep the track of all the resolutions of the images that you have in the document. And remember, it's the effective resolution that you need to look for, not the actual one. So we have a few techniques, simple techniques about working with the images. There is a shortcut of quickly you can resize the images using Control Shift and Alt. When you use Control Shift and Alt, it will scale with the center here. I'll just right click and scale proportionally, take it up here. Let's just resize it back to what it was. Shift Control Alt and put it in center like so. So that's that. Okay. Also, you have another option here. You can scale the image using this sizing option. If I put off this scaling and I give here, like say 90%, it will squeeze like so. And if I give this a link, let's say here, I can also scale this down with help of units, let's say 90 mm, but it will scale down proportionally when you use this option. When you choose this and you Shift Control Alt and scale it down properly. Now you can, as we discussed earlier, you can flip this image like so, flip it up or down. You can also do this by clicking and dragging this and putting it here, and likewise you can do this clicking and dragging, and you can just by clicking and dragging you can invert the image just like that. Just invert back here, back to what we had originally. Now working with this will not distort the image, so it's like cropping the image with this visual reference. If now see that a little bit of edge, then you can always use the fill frame proportionally option and also the content grabber tool to properly align the image to the frame. So these were a few additional methods when it comes to InDesign image editing. Now there are some different types of things. You can do it in several different methods. It's really up to the user to decide what works best for that workflow, for that specific project that you're working on, or what you feel comfortable using in general, because InDesign is such a robust and versatile application. It allows you a lot of freedom of how you're doing things. That's just one of the main reasons why it's industry leading page layout application. So we've covered a lot about image frames. Besides working with images in InDesign, you will be working with text a lot. And this is actually a strength of InDesign. Editing type is an incredibly sophisticated typographic workflow on a level that you would not find in Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Photoshop or any other application that I've ever used. So I'm going to introduce how to work with text frame, and we will be exploring more advanced features. Now in this page number 31, we have this frame with a red plus sign at the bottom right corner. Now that's already something that we need to understand. It is actually an error. This is called overset. When you have too much of text within a frame, remember when we had an image, we cropped it. Now it is something similar. We have a frame again and the content. In this case, it is not an image, it's the text or the copy. So if I increase the size of the frame big enough, it will fit the content within, and the red plus sign disappears. So we see that this is all the copy that we have, and this copy doesn't make any sense. It's a lorem ipsum placeholder copy. So let's just keep working on with this copy here. So as we can see that the frame can be adjusted, and then the copy itself will automatically adjust its width to the size of the frame. I can use the same shortcut by double clicking the corner point of the frame to quickly just adjust the frame to the content inside of it. Just double click here and it will adjust itself automatically. This was the same to reset the container on image and get rid of all the cropping. If I have my frame smaller, I want to increase my size of frame to make sure see all the copy inside of it. Now instead of double clicking on the bottom right corner, I'll normally double click on the bottom center control point because it will increase only the height of my text frame. So double click here and it will adjust the width with respect to only height. So in case of text frames, that's something I use more often. But now let's see what else we can do with InDesign, because this is not the only reason why we have the red plus sign showing and the overset indicator. Let's just make it smaller again. So I make my frame smaller and let's say something like that, and then I decide I would like to continue to copy somewhere down here in a separate frame. Well, I can do that by clicking on the plus sign, and now you can see that remaining copy is now loaded in our place gun or the cursor, and now I can just click and drag to define the another frame. So now the frame is now continuing from the first frame. So there is a thread between these two frames, and to show you how it works, I can just select the first frame and change its size, and immediately you can see the text is flowing between these two frames. So there is a direct connection between them, and it is also indicated with this arrow right here. Now instead of plus sign, we have indicating arrow that there's a text going out from this frame, and that's which we call an output point, and coming to this one from the top left input. This is called the input frame. So top left input, bottom right output. But there's a way of indicating these two connections between these two frames. Now as these two threads are linked, now what happens if I select this one and delete it? I'm going to use backspace and delete it, and when I do this, I don't lose the text because it's now loaded back into the first frame. So luckily it's not lost. So it's kept now within the first frame, but again you can turn it on to see an overset text. Now if I want to see the text without adjusting my frame, I can always reduce the size of the font, but there is another way, interesting feature called story editor, which you will find under the edit menu. And you can use a shortcut Control Y as well. So here is a story editor. I'll just open Control Y, and I have my story editor right here. It will give you a separate little window. It's like a notepad or text editor application within the InDesign. You will see the selected content. It will let you know exactly how much text is currently overset. Even though I see it in the actual layout, I can make changes in here, like change in here. And now if I type something here, like so, then once I adjust my frame, it will become invisible. It will become visible. Now if I want to go back and continue, I can use my shortcut Control Y. Control Y. it takes me directly back here. Now let's just check if that's updated. I have made a change there. It came up right there. Now there's another useful panel. From the Windows menu, you can find the info panel window. Here I have an info. You can use shortcut F8 as well. So it shows me here, let's just say I'll select this. So it is going to show me the number of characters, number of words, line, and paragraph. It's currently showing the dimension of the image right here. So the number of text I get selected here, it will come up and show with the characters, words, and lines and paragraphs. It's paragraph 1. So that's another thing you can see about the text frame here. Now there's another cool thing that we can explore here. If I go to this option here, overflow text, and if I press Alt and click, I have something other than what we used to have. Now if I press Alt again, I can get this frame right here. Now if I press Alt again, I can continue making multiple frames like so. And now if I make changes, it will update in all the frames as well. Now this is a slightly different option. What happens is I can continuously add new frames and they will all be joined together. So as you can see that I have 4 frames. When I select one of them, I can see the whole story is still connected. I can have all these 4 frames threaded with each other. Now that's just by simply holding down the Alt key with your new text frame. So that's how we see threading that works. So threading and overset that works with InDesign. Now in InDesign, we can add a placeholder text. Similarly to images, you will be able to place text in InDesign from different file formats like Word files, rich document formats, rich text formats, or simply just TXT files and even Excel documents. Sometimes you might need to put on a dummy text when you're still waiting for the copy. So as a designer, it's very common that you might need to prepare a composition that maybe they'll tell how much text you can expect. Let's say 500 words for an article, but you have to prepare the composition before you actually get the final copy. So in these cases, what you can do is you can use the type tool and you can draw a frame around like so. And now like that, and go to the type menu and fill with placeholder text. Make sure you check from the paragraph style that you have basic paragraph option selected, and also from the character styles you have none selected. Let's go to the paragraph styles and text and type here, character styles. Can access this from here, option text here, paragraph styles none. Okay, it is currently at none. Alright, paragraph styles. Okay, that seems about right. So this looks strange, but don't worry, we'll be talking about this. It is not English language. It just are some Latin words and spaces that just fills up the text box that you have just created. Now that doesn't actually mean anything. It looks like anything that is Latin. But the whole point is that without making us want to read, it still feels like it could be English or some other similar language because it has short and longer words, and by default, it is also using hyphens. Although it doesn't really have a grammar to it, again, it's just simulating a grammar. But if you want to remove hyphens, so if you want to avoid hyphenation, you just need to go to the paragraph. Here, switch off the hyphenate. Here you can just remove the hyphenate in just one click. Now if you want to make sure that it is applied to the whole copy, then you just have to select this whole and then choose the hyphenate. We can switch back to the character formatting options to reduce the size of the copy, maybe down to 9 points. Let's just select this and go to text here, and maybe I can just go back to 9 points. Now it will automatically bring it up, or if I just reduce the text, it will bring it down. If I reduce the text here, it will just bring it down like so, and it will adjust as per the paragraph text. Now, if you ever need to populate a page with some dummy text while you are still waiting for a copy to arrive, don't forget to use the placeholder text option. I can replace this text by highlighting it all. I'm going to choose File, Place, File menu and Place. And let's just go here, maybe here, exercise. Let's use the sample text. Now I'm going to use this file called sample text. When I select this, it's an RTF file, rich text format. I can click open and see that. Skip, and there I have my text imported from the RTF document. Let's just go back here and reduce the text file to something like 5. And it brings down the file size, font size like so. The reason I wanted to show, because you use place command by default, formatting of the original copy will also be used in InDesign. So you see it not only replaces the copy, but even the formatting is now set to whatever that RTF document had. So if I wanted to avoid that, if I want to maintain the formatting here, you simply just replace the copy. I'll just undo the step here, bring back my lorem ipsum. Now go to File and Place. Here, select this and then click on this Show Import Options and give Open Now. And here, click on this, Remove Styles and Formatting from Text and Tables, which will allow me to disable the files formatting, and just give OK. You can drag, and there I have it. Select this. Oh, I forgot to select that, so just that didn't have replacement didn't happen right. Okay, just give open and give OK. Yeah, now the formatting has been removed. As you can see, it had too many spaces before, and this time I don't. So what it means that it's going to inherit the current formatting of the text frame. So by default, it was set to preserve the styles and formatting. But if I use another option and click OK, you can see it reset itself. And the only thing that happened is now that this paragraph style came back to somehow activate itself. Just set it out to be a basic paragraph. And there you can go. Now it's a new copy, but now with my formatting on it. Now don't worry if it doesn't work just yet, because we have to cover a lot about working with text in general, and especially working with styles. Now I'd like to show you how to add columns within a text frame. I'll just select this frame here and press Ctrl B to access the text frame options. You can also access this from right clicking on the text and choosing text frame options. It's the same thing. You will get the important dialog box, which you have already turned on in preview, and make sure you do so. So we can go to here, object, and text frame options. Now make sure you have this preview on, so you will be able to see live what are the changes going on behind. So first things I wanted to show you is the number of columns. If you increase that, you will see straight away in the background that it gives increase in number of columns. It is adding new columns and dividing your copy within that frame. So it's almost like threading, but in a little bit more controlled way. And whenever you divide your copy into columns, you also have another value called gutter. Here, that's a gutter. That's the empty space between your column. So I can reduce that if I feel like that it's a little bit too much. But make sure that you don't get columns too close to each other, especially if you use justify alignment, because then it will be just difficult to see there's a division between. And don't forget, these division lines will disappear. They are just here in the normal view, but they won't show up in the print. Now if I click OK and accept this change, I can increase my size of the frame, and to show that sometimes you end up having too much text on one side and not too much on the other side. There's a little bit too much unbalanced. But if I go back and back to the text frame options, Control B here, and if I check this option here, that's called balance column, it will do exactly what you'd expect it to do. It distributes the content or the copy between the lines of 2 columns or 3 columns, between whatever amount of columns you have. Now there is another way, useful way. It's called inset spacing here. But let me demonstrate it after creating an array here. I'll just click OK here. I'll just give 2 columns here, give OK. Now, if I have an image in the background, you might want to have this color behind the text just to be able to read the text. So I'm going to go to this section here and change the color of this text frame. So I have the whole frame selected. Then I go to this little toggle here, and you will make sure that your fill color is highlighted. This is the stroke color. This is the fill color highlighted. And go ahead and choose this color. Use color. So once I select, I can see it's already there's a color fill yellow. But the problem here is we see that the copy is too close to the edges here of the frame. Before it wasn't really important or relevant, but now we have to fix this. So select the frame, give Control B command for the text frame options, and now increase the inset spacing, and now it makes sense. Now it keeps the text away from the edges. So this is a perfect when you use fill color or stroke color, having a border around your text frame. Also, you can find another option called align here. You want to align to the top of the frame, or to the center of the frame, or to the bottom. And there's justify them in a line as well. The line spacing will be increasing according to the available space between the text frame. Let me just show you how this works. Click OK. And if I increase this text, it will increase the spacing automatically, like so. It will adjust like an accordion. I can drag him up or down. It is just keep increasing or decreasing depending on the content. If I go back to text frame options, I'll just go back and set this back to top. It will keep the line spacing at the default amount. We will be taking more about text formatting options. So these things like the leading will make more sense. I'm going to explain them all. Now I'm going to show you one last thing, that is the auto size feature. Let me just remove the columns here right now. Okay. Here I have auto size features. That is by default it is off. I've switched to height only. Now this is what happens is the frame will immediately automatically adjust its height to the copy inside it. I like to also make sure that the top of the edge of the frame is locked so it stays wherever I place it. So I click in here. But this feature means, let's just give OK. Okay. If I enter a line break, it will automatically increase it. Let's just give in here. It will automatically increase its height following the changes in the copy. Now whenever I have auto size on for text frame, that means I will never have to overset text showing up in this frame, because no matter how far I go, it will just keep increasing itself. I like to keep it set to height only and to the top edge fixed. Even if I start stretching the frame, notice how long does it go beyond necessary. So auto size is in a sense a similar when you're working with copy to auto fit working with images. Always don't necessarily work with this on, because you might want to thread the text and then again it is preventing me to threading the text. So I would just go back and turn off the auto size. And it is easier to set up, by the way. You don't actually need to see overset text indicator to be able to create a thread. You can already, without overset, you can just click here and make text right like so. Now it works when you just take back this down and there's no plus sign here. So it makes the copy that can travel from one frame to another. Now we can actually understand what is the thing with text with frames in InDesign.